All right, I think we're recording. Perfect. Happy Friday. Welcome everyone to our last course of the Cybersecurity Marketing Society and W2 Communications PR workshop. We're so excited that we've come to this point where it's been quite a really good journey. Lots to learn still. And so I'm so excited the W2 team is allowing us to dig into their brains for one more time. And of course, we're going to record these, so it's going to be with us forever as a resource. So today, let's welcome both Christy and Stephen. They're going to be our professors for today's course. And I'm going to hand over the mic to them and go back one more slide so that we can go over the agenda.
Great, thanks, Maria. And thank you everyone for joining us through these sessions and for joining us today. Just a quick run through of everything that we are going to be going through during today's session. We are going to really talk today about amplifying your PR efforts. We'll do a quick recap of where we've gone throughout these sessions up to this point, and then also talk about how you can continue to amplify everything that you are doing for your PR program in a cohesive integrated marketing program. So before we jump into that though, we can go ahead and jump to introductions. And Stephen, I'll let you introduce yourself first.
Christy, thank you so much. Maria, thank you. Appreciate everybody joining us today. My name is Stephen Mackey, and I am the Chief Creative Officer here at W2 Communications. I come to W2 Communications from my own creative agency, Mesh Omnimedia, that worked very closely with W2 over the years here in Northern Virginia. Those of you probably know that we are about an hour west of DC is where our HQ is. And my background has been very varied. I started off in pro audio, mixing big rock shows all over the world, got into web technologies. I worked in online market research. I'm a self-proclaimed data junkie. I love finding the story in data. And digital storytelling and bringing all of that together through creative is really my role here at W2 Communication. It's humanizing very technological stories, finding brand promises, finding brand value, creating really impactful visuals, and taking that story to market and helping our clients grow. So that's my role. Christy? Great.
And then I'm Christy Pittman. I have been with W2 Communications for a little more than 12 years. I'm the vice president. I'm serving clients across a variety of industries and verticals. Really have grown up and spent the bulk of my career with cybersecurity, but also touch in telecommunications, satellite communications, the federal government. So really run the gamut with a lot of the areas that I've touched over the course of my career. And I support our clients in creating integrated marketing programs that help bring their story to life, that help reach their core audiences, whether that is through a media interview, through creative, creative design, through web content, contributor articles, all of that. So looking forward to sharing just a little bit of what I have learned over the course of my career with everybody here. So we can jump down to the next slide where we can just do a quick overview of everything that we have already touched on during these sessions. For those of you who joined session 1 with my colleagues, Tony and Joyson, talked about just building setting up a PR program. Session 2 dug into just executing on that with basic media media relations. And today we're going to dig into showcasing that and amplifying the results of your PR program to amplify or to show everything that you've been able to do and to help fuel your sales funnel and lead engagement. So then jumping down to the next slide, one of the things we wanted to touch on is who your audiences are. I know in the first session, we talked about your audiences for your PR program and outlined who those people are. But there are also audiences for your amplification efforts as well. Some of those audiences do overlap, but when you are amplifying your efforts, your coverage, you're sharing that with your executive team, your investors, your sales team. All of these audiences are very important, and each of them has a little bit of a nuanced approach to how you want to show them, or with what you want to show them. Your executive team, they want to see where their money is going as far as investment in a PR program. Your investors also want to see that. Your sales team wants to see coverage so that they can use that to engage with current customers or with prospects. And then you also have the industry overall, who you are trying to help shape and shift. The important thing to remember is that amplification is a consistent process. It's something that you reference throughout the year. It is something that isn't a one and done type of thing. So if you get a piece of coverage, it's not something where you share it once and that's the end of it. It's something that you should be resharing throughout the year as it is relevant. Perfect example is, with SolarWinds, if you have a supply chain angle that you have been, talking about, you had thought leaders out talking about supply chain risks 8 months ago, there's an opportunity to reshare via social media some of your clients' insights or your company's insights, or for shaping the industry overall. One of the things that we have been able to do with some of our clients is use media relations to help tell the story and to shape some of the key terms that the industry is using. One example I can use is we worked with a client in the satellite sector who wanted to coin a phrase with their audience in the federal government. And we made it a point in everything that we did for our program to highlight that term. It was in our contributed content. We had our spokespeople referencing that, using that phrase in every media interview. It was in every speaking op, every award nomination. What we found is that by doing that, we then ended up having some of our key audience, members of the military or the federal government, starting to use that phrase. And then eventually what we also saw was that some of their competitors started to adopt that phrase because they saw their audience, their key customers, adopting that phrase. When you're amplifying your coverage and your efforts, you want to see it pervasively moving through everything that you're doing. And you want all of your audiences to be able to see that value that's being driven. Stephen, you want to jump in with the next slide?
Yeah, let's go ahead and move down. So one of the most frequent questions that we get here at W2 is, what is PR's role within a more comprehensive integrated marketing plan? And we put a lot of thought to this, and what we ended up doing was creating an infographic based on the customer journey, right? And so we, as you can see from the infographic, there are a few vertical things happening here. So over on the left are the different phases of the customer journey. Now, this is a more detailed version. Some people will say the customer journey can be as simple as awareness, consideration, and purchase, maybe advocacy. But these are the steps that we decided to frame out. Next to that, and color-coded specifically this way, is a customer intent. You can see it goes from cold to hot. It's very hot at the point of the win, right? So if you look at the funnel model, your lead gen opportunities are happening out there in the world. And then where things get interesting and where we come in is the affinity with which we are presenting our client brand stories to their audiences, right? So in the world of PR, it's typically very early on in the customer journey. It's usually what we call a brand awareness play. So you don't necessarily know who each individual is. So that informs how you speak to them, how you write to them, right? And as their intent increases further down the funnel, past the point of conversion, our affinity increases. And the methodologies change, right? So you can see PR is really establishing your footprint in the world, right? Getting people to understand who you are, that you're out there, that you have something of value, something interesting that you're doing. And then as people become aware of you, and more importantly, aware of you and your competitors, how are you differentiating yourself in that very crowded sphere, right? And important to us as well is how are we measuring the efficacy of all these different initiatives? How does one initiative's metrics and KPIs inform subsequent initiatives further along the customer journey, further down the funnel? And then when programs and campaigns are over, how can we go back and look at everything that we did and figure out what made sense, what worked, where do we want to double down our investment next time? And so by being able to visualize all of these steps in the interrelation between them, a lot of our clients have found this graphic very helpful in understanding PR's place in an integrated marketing program. I'm gonna move on. Christy, go ahead.
Great. Sorry, I couldn't come off mute. So, one of the things that, building off of that graphic, one of the things that we really want to do with our clients is be able to reach audiences at multiple places in that sales funnel. We want to ensure that we are not just helping get leads into the top of the funnel, but also help move customers and prospects down into and through that sales cycle. And really, a PR program is only successful if it is part of a fully integrated marketing program. So, for example, we try to integrate very closely with the marketing team. We want to be an extension of your marketing department in order to make sure that what we are doing is in lockstep with what our clients are hoping to achieve. One of the ways that we try to do that is we look for ways to tell one story in as many different ways as possible. So, there's so many different ways you can tell a story. We've listed a few components here with white papers, contributor articles, proactive media, social media. There are a lot of ways that you can tell your story. You just need to sit back and look at it and go, all right, I've got this core piece of content. It's, essentially the spider web like we've got here. You have one piece of content. You can branch off of that white paper, we'll say, into a media pitch. You can branch the media pitch and hopefully subsequent coverage from that pitch into a blog that explains more of it from a product perspective. It can build into social media posts. It's not just about the coverage. It's about creating various components that support the coverage and support the story that overall story you're trying to tell. Whether that is through micrographics, images, video, etc. It's looking for as many ways as possible to tell your story. And beyond this, there's also the digital marketing. There's paid components as well. What you're trying to do is, what you want to do with an integrated marketing program is build trust through organic, and then use paid to supplement that and leverage that trust for your leads.
The other piece that I would just add to this slide that we found to be very effective, not only for our clients, but for our marketing initiatives as well, is this idea that Christy touched on about repurposing content, right? How do you put all of this time and energy into creating a thought leadership piece such as a white paper, but then how do you chunk that out as 30 social media posts? How do you, rebuild that into 4 blog posts, right? Or conversely, how do you turn a series of blog posts into an ebook, right? How do you find other channels where to distribute your content, right? So a lot of this speaks to, the overall PR initiative of amplifying the brand and amplifying the story. But then you kind of get down into the tactical. It's like, okay, we made this investment in creating this content asset, interviewing these SMEs and coming up with all of these great ideas or whatever. How many different ways can this be carved up, chunked out, and repurposed? One technique that has been very, effective for us is when we do video interviews with executives, right? We'll take, we'll make sure that, we get the CEO in the chair and we interview them and we get the story out of them for the task at hand. But then we'll get another 15 or 20 minutes of interviews. Let's get them talking, whether it's, strategy, recruiting initiatives, all of those things. Every one of those little bits can be chunked out. All of that content can be transcribed and put on, again, social media posts, blog posts, and whatever. So it just comes down to how are you maximizing the ROI of a brand amplification initiative in getting as many, different repurposable content elements out of it.
Great. So then I know this is a question that came up on I think it was the first session, which is just talking about promoting your coverage on social media. And there's a few pieces with promoting coverage on social media that I think are important. One, obviously in the initial and immediate aftermath of aftermath's not the best word, but after an article runs, you want to promote that coverage. If there's a great quote from your SME, call out that quote. If maybe there's something more that they want to elaborate on, have that SME tweet the article with their additional insight and commentary. There's an opportunity to use social media as a way to continue telling the story. Make sure you're using relevant hashtags, the hashtags that you all have identified for your keywords. And then also making sure you tag your SME, tag the journalist, tag the reporter. It's not just about amplifying your own coverage, it's also about amplifying the reporter's coverage as well. And it's a great way to continue discussion, that foster continued goodwill, good conversations between the reporter and your SME, and to engage in conversations, whether with other industry luminaries, with prospective customers, or with colleagues, whether that's within your organization or with from other organizations, partners, etc. Another important piece of sharing and amplifying your coverage on social media is making sure that your teams are sharing and retweeting. The more engagement you can get for a social media post, the more eyes are getting on it. So the more retweets, it's just continuing to expand the audience that is seeing your company's coverage. And then, remembering reporters are human and they're not just robots for reporting. They are sharing pieces of their personal lives or things that annoy them or that they particularly enjoy on social media. Have conversations with them, interact with them, tell them that you loved this story that they wrote. Make it a point to ensure that your SMEs, as much as they are comfortable, are engaging with reporters on social media as well, not just sharing coverage of your company, but interacting with them around other relevant stories as well.
The other aspect of this, promoting coverage on social media, we're starting to get a lot of inquiries from clients about social listening platforms, right? And social listening is different than social monitoring in that social listening implies the context of engagement, right? So social monitoring is just basic metrics. How many people clicked on something, how many people liked it, but being able to understand, positive or negative commentary. And what it allows you to do is, you and your client might be super hyped up about a great placement. You push it out on social media and it's crickets, right? Why is that, right? What did we miss the mark? It can be a very important, free, valuable feedback mechanism. Conversely, like Christy was talking about earlier, if you are creating a new word, right, a new buzzword, a new catchphrase, social media is another great place to really beta test those ideas, right? Push those out on social media, see which versions of the new phrase your audience is responding to. Do they Is this intuitive, what you're calling this new service or solution or product? Did the story make sense? Did people get it? Are they confused by it? Is it resonating? All of those things. Again, social media engagement and that listening really can give you a leg up into how is that going to inform our next campaign, our next placement, our next thought leadership piece, and really advise your campaigns moving forward. So back to our infographic, as we sort of begin to map that out and visualize that customer journey and how different reporting platforms fed into each other, what did the lead gen funnel look like? We have more and more questions about how are we measuring the effectiveness of PR campaigns? Is it share of voice? Is it brand lift? Is it website visits? Is it net number of new visitors to the website, right? How do we know that these things are working? Again, just talked a moment ago about social listening. Are people responding positively to our placements, to our brand story, to our 2020 pivot, whatever the things might be? And so the other thing that we've found to be very critical, and this is not just in terms of PR, but just overall brand strategy, is that, and I don't believe that this is a net effect of COVID. I believe the world was moving in this direction anyway, but people are looking for a lot more authenticity from their brands, right? They don't want to be spoken at. They want the messaging to be consistent with their pain points. They want their brands to understand their needs and where they're coming from. And the phrase for that is customer centricity, right? So what we find in our digital strategy, in our PR, in our messaging, in the content marketing that we're doing is really, coming at every story from the customer's perspective, right? Use the word we less and less and less, and use the word you more and more and more. Going down to our third bullet here, looking at lagging indicators. If we're brought on with a new client to begin an engagement, the first thing that my team will do is we'll leverage as many of our measuring and analytics tools as we can to establish baselines, right? Where is this client today? Why did they part ways with their last agency? What do they expect us to be doing with them? And what are their metrics for success, right? Is it driving down their cost per lead? Is it increasing eyeballs on a new microsite? Is it brand lift? Establishing those things ahead of time, because in an integrated marketing program, of which PR is a very critical component, over time, you need to be able to measure the effectiveness of all of those campaigns. And one, jettison campaigns and initiatives that are not bearing fruit according to expectation. And two, more importantly, increase investment into those campaigns that are working really, really well, figuring out why, and reinforming those initiatives, and just at some point, we're really just pouring the gas on and going. So all of those things can be monitored and measured, but it is not trivial. I live in this world every day, and literally you could log into Google Analytics on Monday, know where to find something, and by Wednesday they've changed it. So it definitely keeps you on your toes. But the days of you got to do PR just because are long gone, right? Nobody buys that anymore. And what people ask us are like, well, how do we know this is working? And we're like, you can measure the impact of PR in so many other tangential ways, but you do have to start with where are we today, right? And then monitor all of those things as you move forward. And that's why having PR as part of an integrated digital marketing program is proving to be very, very valuable to people.
Hey, Stephen, we have a question from Stephanie.
Sure.
What advice do you have for when your SMEs are resistant to social media use? And I've actually had this personally experience.
So, whenever I have, an SME that might be resistant to it, is I really try to understand why. Did they have a bad experience in the past? Did a previous agency embarrass them? Did they not have good content, right? First, you have to get to the root cause and understand what is that hesitation. And then, invariably, in this era, my response is always data driven, right? You can always, produce a case study that shows a with and without, how a well-crafted, well-monitored, and strategically deployed initiative bears fruit according to, some budget, some other campaign metrics. But the idea, if somebody is just pushing back, well, I don't want to do it because, I don't want to do it because, that's fine. You will never change their mind on just because you should, right? You have to be able to put social proofs in front of them, ROI in front of them. You can only respond to questions like that with actual facts and figures. You're never going to passionately argue your way out of that one. So you gotta do your homework. You have to have some prior successes as to why this works. And even if you're new to this and if you don't have a lot of successes in-house, there's hundreds of articles out there that you can share with these folks and say, look, here's what we think this program is going to do for you. Here's why we think it's important. And then if none of that works, show them that their competitors are doing it better than them. I mean, just go to old school. You're getting beat, at the foul line by your competitor because they're doing this and you're not. But again, that would be an actual metric, an actual case study, an actual example to show them of why these programs work. And the other part of this is that if you can't convince them of that with actual metrics and social proofs, then you probably ought not to be doing it anyway, right? You never want to go to a client and be like, hey, we're going to spend 50 grand of your money to do this thing. And they're going to ask why. And you need to have a valid, and if my attorney was here with me, you need to have a defensible answer as to why that is. And that comes down to facts and figures and ROI. You're going to spend 50 grand on this program. We're going to bring you $500,000 of business. That quiets everybody usually. Did that answer your question? Sorry.
I was going to say, one thing that I would also add to that for social media is you can look for ways to work with that SME. We have worked with SMEs in the past where we have, crafted tweets on their behalf, or at least put together the basics of a tweet or social media post on their behalf, let them review it and say, yep, this is what I want to have come out of my mouth, copy, paste, and post. So you can work with SMEs to help them find a middle ground, something that allows you to continue getting your message out there, and whether that's amplifying coverage or interacting with others, without necessarily putting them completely out of their comfort zone. So you can find that middle ground with them, and have a conversation to figure out where you can meet them on social media.
Perfect. Thank you both. Kevin agrees with the latter approach, Stephen, with saying your competitors are stealing your lunch, basically. I like that, Kevin. Awesome. Should I move on to the next one?
Sure.
The other thing I heard, I heard a great quote, and this probably goes back a couple of years, but I think it's just as relevant today as it's ever been. It's, if you're not telling your story, someone else is, and they're not getting it right. So there's that.
I like that. I might use that in a meeting or two.
So yeah, moving on.
Yeah, would you like me to go? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, please. Yeah. So, when we talk about different methodologies, again, I'll refer back to that infographic about the customer journey and the methodologies, which methodology is appropriate for which phase of the customer journey. And something that always helps people kind of understand what to use when is my buying boots example. And you can do this at home, and I would encourage you to do this. Go to Google and search for boots. What comes up? Red boots, black boots, high boots, women's boots, men's boots, kids' boots. It's just all kinds of boots come back, right? At that moment, you are in a brand awareness phase of your customer journey. You know that a thing called boots exists, but you're not really sure what they are, just kind of looking around, okay? So now you've spent some time looking around. Now you want to start to, educate yourself a little bit. Go back to Google and search for black boots. Sure enough, you're going to get black boots returned, high top, low top, high heel, low heel, men's, women's, children's, or whatever. You're like, okay, well, I know that there's a thing called black boots. Then go back to Google and search for men's black hiking boots under $100 with a Vibram sole and see what comes back, right? So you see how you've advanced through your customer journey, and what we call the intent, your intentional keyword, your long tail keyword bundle and your short tail keyword bundle that you start getting more and more, again, intentional and more granular as you progress down your customer journey. Now in the cybersecurity world, let's run that same example. Go to Google and search for DDoS. I mean, very few of those results are probably relevant to what you thought you were looking for, right? Then go search for DDoS mitigation. A little farther down the journey, right? First you knew that there was a thing called DDoS. Then you knew that there was a way to sort of protect yourself against it. Now I want to know who. So I've gone down 3 steps of the customer journey through 3 different steps. Then search for DDoS mitigation for federal agencies on the East Coast, whatever that thing is, right? That's what your customers and that's what your clients' customers are doing every day, right? So PR really serves to get in front of that brand awareness stage of them. Who are these smart people doing these really valuable things or whatever? And I've heard about this company, and these digital marketing methodologies all are related to, again, customer intent and the affinity with which we are communicating with these people in the different steps of their customer journey, right? So very high up, it's organic social media, which typically goes hand in hand with PR. You're getting that message out there. It's a drip feed of content. You're establishing a presence. You are getting a leg up on the competition. And as you start to continue down the funnel, then you're going to go to your paid social media initiatives, your PPC, your CPC, your banner ads. And then when somebody is in your funnel, then you go with lead nurturing campaigns, like you're actually writing for them. And again, thinking about all of these things, the language that you use. That's why when we talk to folks about PR, it's like, even though you don't know who you're talking to, you don't know their name, you have a good idea of where they are, right? That's why we, target the placements that we do. We know a certain kind of audience is living in a certain sort of subset of the universe, and that's where we want to position our clients. But we don't know that individual person. And so that is the craft of PR. It's telling that really compelling story, making your clients' SMEs look really, really thought-provoking, thought leadership worthy, and getting that message out there. But then how do you support that initiative, right? Once you've got once you've sort of made your company aware to somebody, how do you finish it, right? You got a fish on the line way, way, way out there in the ocean. How do you get them in the boat? That's another way to think about it. And these technologies, this ecosystem is what finishes the job. This is just, again, specific tactics and techniques that we've found to be effective, again, that drive social engagement, right? So we are not fans of what we call vanity metrics, right? Oh, yeah, we have 50 more users than we did last week. Is that 50 relevant users? Is that 50 people that are going to fill out a form and make an inquiry for our service or our offering? Maybe, maybe not. The efficacy, the success of social initiatives is measured in engagement. It's measured in positive sentiment. It's measured in shares. It's measured in those kinds of things. And how do you achieve success? You have to put out compelling content. You have to put out, well, 1, you have to put out compelling content, but 2, you have to put it out when and where your target audience is consuming it. So there is some tactical involved with that. So let's do a use case. Christy gets a great placement for somebody, right? I'm not going to go post that on their social media profile at 1 o'clock in the morning. You have to time these things. There have to be a strategic sort of co-promotion initiative after that. And then, oh, by the way, the SME, like Christy mentioned earlier, the SME has to put that on their LinkedIn article. And all of those things have to happen in concert, right? So that is what's going to drive social engagement, because you all have seen this happen, whether you were cognizant of it or not. Think about your own experiences on social media. What surfaces in your timeline, right? What surfaces in your timeline is probably related to the topic or the company or the friend or the colleague who you interacted with most previously, right? The algorithm thinks that the last time that you did something cool on LinkedIn, it was with this person. So the next time that person makes a post, they're going to put it up there. Last time this company did, and they're going to look at that activity. So it has to do with the timeliness of the activity. So again, Christy gets a great placement. We push it out on LinkedIn. A very simple tactic that you can tell your clients and their companies is like, have everybody in the company standing by at 2 p.m. on Friday. We're going to post this thing. I want everybody at 2:10 to share it. That will jumpstart the algorithms to say, oh, there's something cool happening here. And don't just hit the like, right? Don't just hit the little thumb button. You have to type something. You have to drive a dialogue for the algorithms to pick up the relevance of the conversation, and then it will surface that content to your larger audience, right? So again, if you think about that, just keep that in mind the next time you go to LinkedIn or Facebook or anything else. What is surfacing in your feed? And start to just do your own mental calculations of reverse engineering those algorithms, and then take that back and apply it to your own client work, and you will see results. It's pretty fascinating.
Stephen, any other channels we can think of beyond what you have listed here? Like, some of the other 3 possible channels that could, help in amplifying.
Yeah. In terms of actual dollar spend, we spend more money on Facebook than anything, which is bizarre because a lot of the work that we do is servicing huge B2B and B2G contractors who are serving the federal government. Well, come to find out, most of the govies can't access Facebook on their work computers. So at night, if they transition over to their personal computer, they're on Facebook. It's a great time to reach that audience with different kinds of content. We learned that by, I don't know if you all have ever heard of it's called the FMMS, the Federal Media and Marketing Report. And it comes out and it shows where different audiences are consuming their media. And so every initiative is unique in the sense that when we approach a digital marketing initiative in support of a PR campaign, it all starts with, one, understanding the business objective, right? What's the point of this PR campaign? Is it in support of a white paper, or is it a product launch? Are we moving into a new target market? Whatever it is, we need to understand that as marketers and as their PR team, and trying to figure out who are we trying to influence with these campaigns, and then figuring out where is that audience consuming their media according to this product line. So 2 completely disparate examples. We've got a $5 billion federal government, huge cybersecurity client, and we diversify and allocate their digital marketing spend one way based on where their audience is, but we're also launching a global winery brand. And that is a completely different set of channels. That is much more Facebook and Instagram focused, and a lot of Google search, because these people are searching for keto wine and stuff like that. You'll see completely different click-through rates for, the large B2G if you're doing, search campaigns based on FedRAMP sort of initiatives, or, cloud technologies and, very difficult, very busy sort of keyword difficult realms, if you will. And so it comes down to coming up with an allocation. Let's say someone wants to spend 10 grand a month, put 5 grand a month in Google. Of that, split that half and half between Google Display and Google Search. Take the other 5 grand, split that between Facebook and Instagram, because they're the same, all owned by the same people. And then the other half on LinkedIn, and then run it for a month. Watch it in the field. Does it change? How do the PR campaigns inform the effectiveness of the digital marketing campaigns? And how can the insight from the digital marketing campaigns then re-inform the subsequent PR campaigns, right? And we actually have a slide on that. It's such an important aspect of what we do and what I would encourage all of you to be doing moving forward. If you want to jump down, go ahead. This is another very important part of what we do. So, as our PR team is getting ready to launch, whether it's a new placement, a new thought leadership piece, maybe it's an ebook, maybe it's a white paper, we will go out and do strategic search and SEO baseline analysis, whether we're going to be doing SEO on their website or not. It's really the same sort of fundamental research into what are the short tail keywords and the long tail keywords that people are using to find this theme, this topic, right? What we call a topic cluster. And we had a client one time that was named as, super important in this, Gartner quadrant. And we went and did all this work. And in literal, I think we found like 7 people the previous month had searched for that key phrase, right? But we found like 15,000 people had searched for credit card fraud. So then the nuance for the PR team then becomes, okay, well, how do we craft our release, our article, our thought leadership piece with this, phrase that the client actually calls their thing, but also incorporate these other terms, what the rest of the world calls it, without it looking like keyword stuffing or spammy. And that just comes with experience, nuance, and trying different things and see what works, right? But if you could go to the next slide, how all of this builds upon itself, and then you go back to square one is, so again, think of that customer journey, right? We've got a thought leadership piece. We've got a great media placement. There's a buzz happening around our company and something happens, right? So the customer's brand awareness journey is, I kind of heard about this company. And then internally, they're realizing that they have a problem. They have a pain point, right? We have an issue here, right? So their intent has gone up a level. Now our affinity has increased a level as well. We can talk to them in more specific terms, right? Then now they're like, okay, we have a problem. We have to go find some vendors that fix this problem. Now they've moved on to the investigate solutions phase. We can reach them with new kinds of content. And that's where an article placement in the right sort of industry journal can really be the catalyst for that lead conversion. Digital marketing kind of picks it up there. Because remember, if someone fills out a form on your website or your client's website, they've probably filled it out on 5 other competitor websites that same day, right? So no one's ever just in your funnel. And this really freaks people out a lot. They're like, sure they are, they're my lead. No, they're like 9 people's lead today. And people don't like to hear that, right? Because that's where it gets real. It's like, now the race has begun, right? They've opened the gate and you all of your horses just took off out the gate. And now you have to win that race. And that's what lead gen, lead nurturing is. People are investigating those solutions. But at the end of that whole process, right? Say that somebody saw that PR campaign, they read that article, they then saw you on a Google display ad, they clicked on something, they went to a landing page, they downloaded a white paper, they then talked to your sales team. Now they've signed the contract, right? Now, the beauty of this whole thing is having that conversation with the salesperson and saying, why did we win? Right? What was the thing that we solved for this client? And they're like, we solved this, and we solved this. And you take that information and take it right back to the PR team. And you're like, write about this thing more. And that's going to continue to drive this momentum. And it's that 360-degree feedback loop that I think, and we have demonstrated to our clients, that's where the super value of having an integrated marketing team is versus just hiring a PR agency. Because a lot of times, what we see with big enterprises, they're like, we just want the PR people to do the PR. We want the digital marketing folks to do the digital marketing. We want those creative folks over there to do the creative, but they're not talking to each other. And so every campaign is just a one-off linear beginning to end process. And there's really no re-informing subsequent initiatives after that. That's why all of this stuff with the digital marketing, the metrics and analysis, re-informing PR campaigns, that's where things really, really begin to make a valuable mark for people.
Hey, Stephen, what if all of these things that you have on the slide is literally one person, a one-person marketing team? What are some of the tactics that we think or you have seen can actually be achievable by just one person and
Sure.
start to see a dent and make a dent in that funnel?
Mm-hmm. So without a doubt, if you only had one person and you had to focus your efforts, I would say it would be on crafting the most compelling content that you can, right? You have to be able to create value for someone right out of the gate because it establishes trust, it establishes respect, sometimes it establishes curiosity. And then the other part of it is, even a one-person shop could set up a very basic sort of Google Analytics dashboard, right? Like if your whole job was like, we put some content out there, and I found this journalist sort of picked up this story, and we repurposed it on our blog. And I was able to look in Google Analytics, and I saw that we actually, made an impact with what we're doing or whatever. I think any one person shop can at least do that much, right? And then if you had two people, well, then I would focus a lot of time on the creative, right? Obviously you start with compelling content, but does it look cool? Is it the right tonality for your audience? You don't need to worry so much about, is it whiz bang video or anything, but is it a nice graphic, right? Does it present us well? So for an agency like W2, what we find is a lot of times we'll work with enterprises that have like 8 and 9 person in-house marketing teams. They're just overworked, right? They can't get to all of this stuff. So they'll send us the brand book, they'll send us the style guides, they'll send us all of this stuff, and they'll be like, just go fix this. And we just go and we run, right? But, a 1 or 2 person marketing team, again, if all you were doing, if you were going to focus your attention on one thing, it's always good storytelling, good thought leadership, good content, getting the right story in front of the right people. If you only do one thing, that would be it. Everything else I think is critical, but nothing else works if that part's broken.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's true. Content is king for sure.
Yeah, the thing that I would also add and just bear in mind is that if you have that one piece of foundational content, you can build off of all of that. It doesn't have to, you don't have to recreate the wheel for every piece of the journey. So you can use that one piece of solid content to build a media pitch off of, to turn into blog posts, to turn into a contributed article, social media post, etc. Those can all, you can tie everything back into that one story, and it's all just cogs on the wheel. So, don't feel like you have to, boil the ocean when you just have to boil a pot of water.
Right. The other piece of this that I think is critical, and you all need to understand, and again, Christy, please laugh out loud if I say anything ridiculous, because I'm venturing into the world of PR. Okay, so I'm the creative digital guy, and sometimes I venture into the world of PR and I get slapped. But I'm going to take this risk for you guys' benefit. But what I have seen in the world of PR is like similar to when you're crafting something for your audience or customer. Put yourself in that journalist's shoes, right? If you're going to go and pitch a story to somebody, you have to assume that they're probably going to go, before they say yes to the story, they're probably going to go check your company out on social media, and if they look on social media and they see you've got 72 followers and no one's ever said anything about any one of your social posts, isn't it safe to assume that that journalist might pause and be like, does this company have anything worth talking about? Because they haven't been able to generate any interest on their side. And I've got 9 other people pitching me, some of which who have 10,000 people and lots of engagement on their website. Who am I better serving in my audience as a journalist, company A or company B, right? So when we talk about the need for social media engagement prior, because a lot of times people will come to us and they're like, we want PR, and we'll go do that. We'll go look at their social media, we'll go look at their website, and we're like, y'all don't need to be spending any money on PR right now. You got a lot of housekeeping to do first. You need a brand, you need some messaging, you need to get rid of this 10-year-old website. We got to do some work here, and we'll spend 3 months with them fixing the house, right? Because the last thing that you want is to get some really, really important journalist on the phone with something really cool and have them go look at your website, because once they pass, it's my understanding that they're never going to answer the phone again unless something really big happens. So again, get the house in order with your clients. Put yourself in the journalist's shoes and be like, do I care about this pitch? Do I care about this company? It's a pretty relevant scenario.
The only thing I would say that's counter to that is that social media is definitely important. But if you are coming to a reporter with something that is compelling, in the wake of a data breach, they don't want you to come to them and say, this data breach would not have happened if you had our product. But if you have if you have an expert who has a very solid background or has direct knowledge or can speak in a not without a sales hat on to an issue that is really truly impacting end users, that speaks directly to that reporter's audience, social media most or at times will not be the deal breaker for them. If you're presenting them with a spokesperson who is articulate, who is thoughtful, and who can really speak to the issue, that will counteract if they don't have a social media presence, or if your company's social media presence is still in the foundational stage.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Christy. Totally agree with that. And in situations like that, that moment, that can actually be the catalyst that then propels the company off into having a relevant social media engagement and a presence there. So yeah, 100% agree with that. Got a little more time, more questions. We got to pick on somebody, do we?
Yeah, we have about 7 more minutes. Yeah, you're welcome to unmute and ask any questions you have. I know a few of you already did on the chat, but Kevin, I know you have a question or two. I'm gonna pick on you.
She called you out, man. What you got?
I haven't been taking enough notes. I'm feeling a little bit. I'm gonna have to watch the replay or something, but I had something earlier. I'm gonna pass on this one.
All right. What about you, Karen? I know you're doing a great deal of brand building. You're working with Sony on lots of PR. Anything stick out from what we covered?
I actually really liked the conversation about aligning your content marketing to your PR strategy. It's something that I've seen work really well with my clients as a content person, and keeping sort of that brand based on like what your key values and messages are that are resonating.
Mm-hmm. You know, I am, and Christy can attest to this. So I'm in grad school right now. I'm getting my master's in digital marketing from WVU. Christy, WVU. And the course that we're in right now is digital storytelling. So it's very top of mind to me. I've always been a storyteller. I've produced my own documentary film. I've done a lot of corporate video over the years, and it's hard to try to get a technologist to say anything that is going to resonate directly with the client. That's why they need Christy, right? They're like best of breed solution, wah, wah, wah. And we're like, we don't care. What do you do, right? Why does this matter? Yep. And it takes people like Christy to, what I say, be the transducer, turn the super tech geek into someone that can say, we protect your grandma's savings, right? That's really what we do. How we do it, we like to talk about code all day, but that's not what we do, right? So humanizing that story, doing that digital storytelling. But the point of this is, as a requirement of this particular course, we have to complete the HubSpot content marketing and get that certification. And I would say everybody on this call would derive so much from it. It's free. Take you about 6 hours to blast through all of the videos. So I think it's valuable for people that might be new to storytelling and just need some tips on, where to find inspiration, how to do some competitive analysis or whatever. But I think even more valuable than that, HubSpot has done a great job in illustrating how SEO algorithms work, how to structure your content, right? So it's one thing to understand what is narrative arc, how to write a cool blog post, 7 tips to do this, that, and the other thing or whatever, but understanding some of the tactical things that can get you on page 1, right? And so again, you can't beat the price. And I think this is relevant to PR because I think the same piece of well-formed content, whether it is just for content marketing or a placement in an article or a thought leadership piece, at the end of the day, if people can't find you, it's a failed initiative, right? The whole point of doing content, of doing PR, is to be noticed, is to be found. And if you take the best story in the world, but you didn't pay attention to current tactics and techniques and how the algorithms work and the nuance. And the thing is why these courses are so important is Google changes it every 6 months. They do. They're going to change it again in May, right? So everything that you think is working on mobile is gone in May, and you got to start over again, right? So Same thing with like web. It happened a couple of years ago, you know, and things like that. So a good story is always a good story. It has been for 20,000 years, right? The other part of this that I think is cool that I would encourage everybody to do a little research on is why does a good story resonate with people, right? There are studies right now that a well-crafted story can create empathy. What does empathy do? It releases oxytocin in the brain, right? So when you're crafting a PR message, if you're crafting a piece of content marketing, the more that you can be authentic, the more empathy that you can create with and from your target audience, the more you're going to be remembered, the better off you're going to be, right? So one of the things that I find fascinating about this career that we're all picked, the reason that we're all on this call today, is it's very much a left brain, right brain sort of exercise. You have to be able to write this content so that you can reach somebody, right? The point of a story is to elicit an emotional response, whether it's a technology piece, right? Are we going to create fear in people? Oh my God, my cyber posture is not up to speed. I need to go do something, right? We've elicited a response, right? And then the tactical of how to craft that so that it's findable. So again, HubSpot content marketing certification, it's free. So I'm not getting anything out of it. I just want to help you guys because everybody on my team is taking it now. And I think it's going to make a huge
And
impact.
I've taken it and I co-sign all of that because I do. Everybody, the group knows that I'm
Awesome.
like a content writer. That's my jam.
Good.
And I
Happy
went
to
through
hear
it
it.
and I've used several of the things like those pillar pages. I used one and we
Yes.
did really well with my client, got massive SEO where page one, we were, depending on the analytics, according to Kevin, the piece is either number 8 or number 2, depending on where you're looking at it from. And it really did drive. He got number 2 and I'm like, I did it and I got number, I'm like, I
Yes.
like yours better.
Screenshots galore.
Was hit a specific keyword for our target demographic. So I followed that HubSpot suggestion and I followed like everything they said about like the downloadable clickable stuff. We've been seeing the click-throughs and the downloads. So if you haven't taken that HubSpot course, it's like pretty fabulous and free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
I would second that. Stephanie, I think you had a question, right?
Yeah, I did. I had a question about something we were talking about before about coining a new phrase and trying to make sure that that sort of permeates the market. Aside from just trying to mention it and have everyone mention it as much as humanly possible, do you have any other sort of best practices there?
Christy,
I think one, do your research. I was going to say, I would do your research on it. You know, the phrase that, you know, our client wanted to coin, you know, tied directly to their product, but it wasn't specific. It wasn't specifically about their product. I think making sure that you do your research into, you know, is that phrase being used by, you know, anybody else in the market, and how it's being used in the market is definitely critical. And then making sure that when you do drop it into your company's vernacular, that it's not forcing it. You don't want to shoehorn a phrase into everything, but make it authentically ring through the content you're producing, the social media posts, etc. Or if it's not something that, you know, necessarily flows into your social media posts, use it as a hashtag. But I would say just try to make sure that it is a pervasive piece of your program without feeling like it's forced. Mackey, anything you want to add?
Well, like, yeah. So on the tactical side, right? And there's a lot of considerations with that. One is you got to go to uspto.gov and make sure that your brand new keyword isn't somebody else's trademarked and you're going to get an IP slap somewhere down the road. So that's usually step one. And then there's lots of, again, tools. And I literally just went through this myself. So father of 3 boys, very outdoorsy, right? They wanted me to build them a little e-commerce site so they could sell fishing lures and stuff like that. So I was like, cool, right? So I went straight to Google and I started searching for different keywords and different phrases. And there's some plugins. If you guys don't follow Neil Patel, He's the SEO just monster of the universe, right? Again, get on his newsletter, tips every day, actionable things. So there's a plugin called Ubersuggest that you can plug into your Chrome browser, right? So you put in Ubersuggest and you go search for something, and it'll bring back, you know, a SERP page, right? Search engine results page or whatever. But then this plugin is gonna put these little graphics next to every page, and it's gonna show how many times people clicked through on that result. But then there's these little down arrows. And if you click the little down arrow, it's going to show you all of the other related things that people also searched for. So sometimes you might be like, wow, we thought we had a really cool name, but people are searching for this 5,700 more times than they're searching for our really cool phrase. Let's go with that. Let's make sure it's not trademarked. Let's make sure we can get the domain, all of those other bits or whatever. But there are a lot of free tools out there that will allow you to do this research, make sure that your idea is clean, and again, put metrics to it. I think even before I joined W2 in the summer of 2018, even with my small creative agency, we were doing what I call data-driven creative, right? You can't guess anymore, right? The other thing is just go do some market research. I mean, if you got a few $1,000 out of the client and you're like, look, let's create something on SurveyMonkey or Alchemer. Let's run a study. Let's buy some sample and just ask people. It's so funny how many marketers are like, we know best. Let's bury ourselves in our bunker and we'll figure this out. No, just go out, stand on the street corner and ask people, hey, what do you think about this, right? What's the digital version of that? Run a survey, get some quantitative data, get some qualitative data, mine that. Those are the things that are going to set you straight, right? Because if you don't do all of that, and you get it wrong, you're probably going to get shown the door. And in a worst case, your client could get sued because you guys didn't do your homework right. So there's a lot that goes into it from the tactical level. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Sorry about that. My internet has been so spotty all day, and so I had to hop back on my cell phone. I don't know anymore. Well, thank you so much for everyone for joining today, and thank you to the W2 team for putting this together for us and for joining us 3 Fridays in a row. We really truly appreciate it. Amazing content and amazing advice as usual. So yeah, happy Friday and have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah,
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate the questions. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.